Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. Today we're going to talk about death matches. So it says John Moxley did an interview and talk about his exploding death match thing that he's going to have with Kenny Omega. And he kind of decided to tell the critics, "Hey, look, don't watch this. It's going to be violent. It's going to be crazy." But he said something that I think is particularly interesting. So before we get into the whole death match shit, let's just talk about what he says here. This is from, I'm looking at an article from Inside the Ropes. He says, I think an element of danger has been missing from wrestling for the last several decades. This is what he said. He says, things over the last decade or so have just gotten, no matter what you advertise, you can put whatever you want on a poster and make it seem like you're going to see something super violent or whatever. But at the end of the day, these kind of extreme matches have been watered down. They're just safe. And, the same old. We look like we're out there playing patty cake. And I think we're going to bring back a real element of actual unpredictability and actual danger. Then he starts talking about there being no restrictions in AEW, and that since Tony Khan gave it the thumbs up, he doesn't want to hear anything about sponsors, TNT, Bleacher Report, or anything about them complaining about this match. And that if you don't want to see it, then you should probably not watch it, because he intends for it to be violent and brutal and etc. etc. Now, if you know anything a little bit about John Moxley, he's slightly he probably he probably huffed paint as a kid, because he actually asked Brock Lesnar to have a really violent match at WrestleMania, and because Brock Lesnar is worth $4 million, he told John Moxley to go fuck himself. So so John Moxley was, of course, disappointed, and this actually led to him being pretty flattened by WWE, because nobody was willing to do the shit that he wanted to do. And this is what he wants to do. Now, whenever I say that, barbed wire, steel cage, death matches, or whatever the fuck, they make no sense and they're stupid, I ended up having conversations with people who talk about FMW. So for those of you who don't know, FMW is Extreme Japanese Pro Wrestling. It was founded in 1989, I believe, by Atsushi Onita, who, oddly enough, retired from actual wrestling in 1985. So 4 years after he had to retire from actual wrestling, he started doing deathmatch dumbfuckery. The second thing is they talk about how popular it was in Japan. And how these shows used to get 25,000 people watching the show, 50,000 people watching the show, 41,000 people watching the show. This is I looked up the history of FMW, and they said that the most successful show ever was May the 5th, 1993, Onita versus Terry Funk in an exploding barbed wire death match. $41,000 fans, over $1.8 million drawn at the gate. Okay, that's cool. That's big money. I think I've seen this match, as a matter of fact, because of course I had to have seen it in order to say that it sucks or something like that. So I can't criticize matches that I haven't seen. So I've seen Terry Funk versus Onita in the time bomb match or whatever the hell, where everything, sparklers and all that kind of shit flew all up in the air, and there was barbed wire and all kind of stuff happened. I also saw Onita's retirement match, which I believe actually drew more than this. That might have been the highest draw. Yeah, it drew higher than that. Because May the 5th, 1995, 58,000 fans, $2.5 million. Yeah, a lot more. Onita's retirement match against Hayabusa and the exploding cage barbed wire match. I actually saw this because I like Hayabusa, and I'm a fan of Hayabusa, not exactly Onita. So I was wrong previously. The highest match was the Onita retirement match, and it drew 58,000 people. Now, people talk about how popular FMW was in Japan, and it was pretty popular from what I could tell. But it was popular in the way that the gladiatorial games was popular in ancient Greece and in ancient Rome. If you knew somebody's going to get decapitated or stabbed to death, then sure, you was going to show up to see it. That's kind of how things used to be. We used to go see people get fed to the lions. The human brain is interested in blood and gore and death and destruction, etc., etc. People are interested in that. There's always going to be a lot of people who are interested in it. But then there's going to be people who are going to be desensitized to it. Over time, it's not going to be as popular as it used to be. That's why FMW is not around today. A lot of, and FMW, of course, was the precursor to what we know as ECW. They actually ran concurrently for a long time and had talent exchanges because Hayabusa was in ECW. And, ECW also got Mike Awesome from FMW along with Masato Tanaka. When Paul Heyman was going through his Tanaka versus Mike Awesome 100 times in a row phase. It was because they had this partnership with FMW, and basically ECW was a ripoff of FMW, and then so all the little ripoffs of ECW basically just ripoffs of FMW. And ECW, well, FMW was in operation for about 12 years before it went out of business. ECW, about half as long. They say it started in 1993. By 2001, it was gone. Right. So these companies have short shelf lives anyway. Also, this is not the United States is not Japan, and you also have to look at some of the differences that FMW had to go through. For instance, they got banned from some arenas. There were certain arenas that didn't want them in the buildings because of how dangerous the matches were, because of the explosions and the fire and the blood and all that type of stuff. They didn't want any of that stuff in their arenas. What's going to start happening? The ECW never ran big arenas. They always ran basically pool halls and bingo halls and that type of stuff. That's why it was always so cramped in an ECW arena. They never really got that big. So you have to look at it from a perspective of scale. This stuff has never been that popular in the United States. It's been popular in Japan, but like I said, watching people get skinned alive used to be popular. Watching people used to watch each other get surgery. That type of stuff used to be popular too. Public hangings used to be popular. You wanted to get the town together to hang somebody. Hey, they used to be popular. And not just Negroes. They used to hang criminals too. So these kinds of things, in public executions and gladiatorial games, these barbed wire death matches are along the lines of that stuff. People will always like to see somebody die or see somebody bleed all over the place or see explosions and, but when you had Onita and Hayabusa wrestling in what was nothing more than some Mad Max Fury Road shit where there's dust all over the place, they're breathing that shit in. They are the grandfathers, let's put it like that, to all of these idiots who are like New Jack with staple guns and tasers and falling off of scaffolds and all this type of stuff. Like, this stuff is not. Look, there perhaps there's an art to it, but there's an art to the Japanese style. Well, let's say the Onita, style Onita and Hayabusa and those guys and Terry Funk and all of those guys were doing. There might have been a little bit more psychology and a little bit more artistic approach to it, because there was a little bit more psychology as far as they didn't just fall into everything. They built up to it. They put some time into it. And then they wouldn't hit these exploding cages again and again and again. They probably hit them like 5 or 6 times through the entire match. Right? But when you look at the death matches in the United States, especially to people you're telling them this is going to be a really violent match. And you look at how this stuff has evolved since Onita and Hayabusa did the exploding cage match, or since Terry Funk has done it with Onita. When you look at these guys bleeding all over the place, you talk about these CCW guys. These guys hitting each other with fluorescent light tubes. They're rolling around in thumbtacks and fire and Legos and everything. There's going to be a certain amount of that's it. If they say we're going to work this match like Onita would work it, it's going to be definitely like that's it. It's just going to be some firecrackers and barbed wire. That's it. Like, we could have watched CZW and watched somebody almost literally bleed to death or get thrown off of a 30-foot scaffold and almost die. New Jack laughs at you if you're going to go out there and pussyfoot around, which is what John Moxley claims that we're serious. We have to go out there and really bring an element of danger. It's like maybe in mainstream wrestling that element of danger is gone, but it's gone for a good reason, because kids are watching. I went through this in my one video where I talked about the demographics. WWE was blamed for kids dying. They're not going back to that kind of stuff. They're not about to go back to that shit. You know, AEW is trying to do it for shock value. And it may work once, and it may even work twice. But how many times is it really going to work? Because, again, it didn't work for ECW. They ended up going out of business. Right? Didn't work for FMW. They ended up going out of business. You know, all of the companies that stayed around for a really long time had a foundation of actual wrestling. Occasionally they did some brawls. I mean, obviously there was some brawling. You know, brawling is a part of the business, you know. But all the special effects, we're going to try to, you got a timer, and there's explosions, and there's going to be landmines, and all that's, and I'm like, when I heard about that, I was like, landmines? Where are you going to put landmines? You know, it's like, this kind of stuff is, it is what it is, but it's not for me. You know, I personally think this shit is stupid. You know, but that's me. Death matches don't appeal to me. You know, because it doesn't take, like I said, in the Japanese sense, it takes a little bit more psychology, a little bit more artistic. But these things recently, especially since the ECW days, the Ian and Axel Rotten Taipei death matches with, glass on their fists, that stuff is terrible. Usually death matches now do not feature guys who are actually talented. You know, most of these guys nowadays are fat losers who have never done anything athletic in their lives. They probably had never even run to the grocery store and back. You know, and they just fall all over the place, and people chant and whoop and holler because it's the same kind of people who will show up to a public hanging. You know? But it's interesting. It's going to get people's attention. There's going to be people who are going to pay attention to it. There's always going to be people who are going to want to watch it. And there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing anybody can do about it. It's going to be dangerous. And if Jon Moxley claims he wants to bring back an element of danger, then there that is. He's going to do that. Okay, correct. All right, fine. But wrestling is a business. Wrestling is a work. And everyone knows it. So, and then, of course, this comes off of the heels of these same two guys, not even using real barbed wire when they had their unsanctioned match. You know, so I question how serious this really is going to be. You know, so that's really my thing. I really question how serious it's going to be because Kenny Omega fashions himself to be some great pro wrestler. He doesn't really need to do an extreme barbed wire death match or whatever the hell. Jon Moxley, this is right in his wheelhouse. You know, he does stupid shit, so this is his thing. So the question then becomes, like, what is really going to happen? And what I really think is going to happen is probably just going to have the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega jump him. They're going to beat him up, throw him through some barbed wire or some other shit. It's going to probably be bloody, you know, but everything that they have claimed is going to be pretty violent and over the top has been pretty tame so far in AEW. Even though the first match, the unsanctioned match between Moxley and Omega, it was just long. You know, it was very, very long, but it was mostly tame stuff. They didn't bleed almost to death. There were matches in WWE where two guys damn near bled to death. You know, there were matches in WWE that were not barbed wire, steel cage death matches or whatever the fuck. And guys nearly died. Like, you know, the Eddie Guerrero and JBL, where you had, they say Eddie Guerrero had to go to the hospital after he got hit with a chair in that match because he almost bled to death. Like, I don't see like, and that match didn't even have a finish. That match didn't even have a finish. I think that was the finish. You know, that Eddie Guerrero got his shit opened up. You know, that was the finish. It's like there's a place for hardcore matches, you know, occasionally. And that's really why I want to say, like, AEW is doing hardcore matches pretty regularly. You know, they have these bloody hardcore matches pretty often. They have at least one every 2 months or something like that. They'll have some type of hardcore match. You know, they just had a hardcore match at their last pay-per-view. What was it? Moxley and Kingston. They had a hardcore match, I Quit match, I believe it was. So you kind of have to ask the question, you know, is they trying to blow this thing out of proportion, and when is it going to stop working? You know, it's doing things for shock value, doing things for the gimmick, but whatever, you know. I'm just sitting here. If you put it in front of the screen, I will analyze it. So it is what it is. But barbed wire death matches is not for me. It's stupid as fuck. And I've seen plenty of them. So you can't tell me about FMW. I've seen some of that stuff. I've seen the ECW shit. I've seen some of the ZCW shit. I know who Nick Gage is. None of these people are important to me. They're not important to the wrestling business. Onita maybe, because Onita was a big star and was the founder of this shit. But, it may be him and some of the guys that he made, like Hayabusa. But, a lot of those other guys, who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? So, I mean, that's up to you. Let me know what you guys think about this barbed wire, steel cage, deathmatch shit, or whatever the fuck. Let me know in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. I thank you guys for your time. Send me money via the Cash App, which will be in the comment section below. Use the hashtag 3Count Commentary to support the channel. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Da 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 da.